Alrighty, how's everybody doing? So today I'm going to try and cover in brief detail everything that it is you need to know about creatine monohydrate. What brands to buy, what brands not to buy, when to take it, how much to take, how long to take it, what does it smell like? Any questions you have, I'm hoping that I can get them answered here. And if not, just comment below and I can address them there. I'm going to go about everything that I've done. So to clarify, I started taking creatine when I was 12. I'm now 28 and a half. So it's been a very, very long time of trial and error with this product. I can 100% say that, yes, the research is correct. Creatine works. And between creatine and caffeine, they're arguably the most studied supplements. And on paper, they have the most research backing that they might assist in building muscle in some contexts. So to get into it, the type of creatine you want, the compound, is creatine monohydrate. Don't get like crealkaline or creatine HCl. I'm not as educated on what those variations of creatine do. I do know that some have a different binding affinity with water. That being said, there's not nearly as much supporting research with them as creatine monohydrate, hence why you don't really hear about them that much, so I'm not going to discuss them further. So how I would go about taking creatine. Well, let me digress. What exactly is creatine doing and how would it benefit you from a building muscle and strength standpoint? So all that creatine is doing is it's essentially pulling more water into the muscle tissue, right? And what that's doing on a molecular level is it's allowing your body to replenish its ATP stores a little bit quicker. So what that's going to translate on a macro scale is, in theory, you should get slight boost in energy. On a cellular level, you probably may not notice it on a physiological level. Slight increases in strength gains, which you should notice. Slight increases in power gains, which I would say is the most benefit you get from creatine. You'll put on some weight in terms of water filling up the muscle tissue, which a lot of people interpret or misinterpret as bloating, which I'll cover as well. And in theory, your aerobic capacity should slightly improve. All of these being improved by the fact that your ATP stores are being restored slightly quicker than if you didn't have creatine in it, right? Creatine is a natural molecular compound that's already exists in nature. We consume it in protein sources. So in theory, if you could stomach enough whole proteins like red meats, some white meats and fish, you would get enough creatine that you could hit the same amount that you would get in a serving. That being said, extremely hard to do in a normal diet. I actually don't know if that's even possible to get that level of topping off with the creatine. So what you want to do is you want to get your cells to a point of saturation with creatine within the body, right? When you're below that saturation point, creatine isn't really doing anything that would benefit you from a exercise or strength standpoint. When you do reach those levels of saturation, that is when you start to see the benefit, and that is when you have to really be spot on to continue seeing benefits, because you want to maintain that level of saturation for as long as you can. In theory, indefinitely if you can maintain it, right? Like I've taken creatine for almost 18 months straight, right? I've done it where I've taken 3 months on, 1 month off, etc. If you do it correctly, other than if your stomach can take it, like if you have digestive issues, maybe 18 months might be a little aggressive. But if you don't, there's no real reason that you should hop off, considering that it's a naturally occurring compound that you're already getting in food. So how do we hit that saturation point? How we're going to hit that saturation point is we want to start off either in a loading phase or we'll go into a more conservative method. I'll start off with a loading phase. So what the loading phase is you're going to, I'll use my body weight for example. So let's say I'm about 175 pounds, right? I would probably want over the course of that week anywhere from 125 to 160 grams total, right? What that would look like is I'm going to break up the doses into 5 gram servings over the course of each day. So I could do, let's say, Monday through Friday, 4 servings a day. I could do Monday through Saturday at 4 servings a day, right? In theory, the heavier you get, you may need to go the full 7 days. I wouldn't go lower than 5 days, regardless of your weight, and I wouldn't go lower than 4 servings per day. So that puts you at a minimum of 120 to 125 grams. When I started way back in middle school, that's what I did. So don't do, 3 servings, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You're gonna want 1 early morning. I would recommend 1 pre-workout, 1 post-workout, and then 1 evening. That could also be split to early morning, midday, afternoon, evening, right? Once you're done with that loading phase, you'll have enough grams of creatine in your system to reach a level of saturation, and then you would drop to your maintenance phase, which is just 5 grams per day at any time during the day. It doesn't matter what time you take it during the day. I have some recommendations on when you should take it. Okay, so the second more conservative method, and this is the method that I use these days, is you can, in theory, reach a level of saturation without doing the loading phase if you took 5 grams a day every day for about 30 to 35 days, right? If you did that consecutively, as well as hitting your protein goals, right? Because there you'll get in a little bit more creatine, you'll also hit your level of saturation. And after that, as long as you maintain that with 5 grams a day at any point during the day, you should continue to see the results of creatine. Now, if you miss one day, is that a deal breaker? No. If you miss 2, it might be. If you miss 3, if it was me, I'd be starting over, right? I think of it like a multivitamin, right? If I take my multivitamin every single day and I miss it for one day, it's probably not the end of the world. If I miss it 2 days, now it's starting to become a habit. If I miss it 3 days, I'm definitely deficient in some vitamin. Whether or not that's going to be detrimental for me for the rest of the week, we'll see. But since I didn't take the multivitamin for 3 days, I'm definitely deficient somewhere along the line. That's how you should think about it with creatine, right? Especially being that you don't have to lock yourself in on a specific time as to when you can take it. So how I like to take creatine in the morning is, how I like to take creatine is in the morning. The reason I take it in the morning is I'll take it with a glass of juice. Let's say orange juice, for example. Why am I taking it with orange juice? So when I wake up, right, after 6 to 8 hours of sleep, my body is fasted, and more importantly, it's dehydrated. So the first thing we tend to do is we start to hydrate up. Good rule of thumb to follow. Where carbs go, water follows, right? Where water goes, creatine follows. So it makes sense to me that if in a dehydrated state, the first thing I'm having is a glass of orange juice with some fast-acting sugars or cranberry juice, right? That's gonna hydrate me up. That's gonna pull water into the muscles, especially being that they're flat and dehydrated. And the first thing that they're gonna get is the loaded levels of creatine, right? So that's how I would do it. I've noticed that that's a great way, especially if you're lifting in the morning, to get a slight edge in your lifts. You don't have to do it that way. I've also, in high school, I used to take creatine with my post-workout shakes. That would be in the evenings, right? Somewhere around like 8 or 9 o'clock. You could take it with water. You don't have to take it with a fast-acting sugar, right? There's been times in college where I was taking creatine with my coffee because I had read in a paper that the creatine could be hydrolyzed quicker into the muscle cells with caffeine in the morning. So a bunch of different ways you can skin the cat there. So on that coffee tangent, you can mix it with your pre-workout, right? So a bunch of different ways you can go in terms of when and what you're gonna take with it, right? What I would be prepared for is, especially if you're taking it in the morning, don't be surprised if you get a little bit of GI distress, right? That is actually why I no longer do the loading phase anymore. As I've gotten older, dealt with a little bit of digestive issues here and there that just stomach can't really take, 135, 150 grams of creatine over the course of the week. I remember the last time I did that was, I just graduated college, so I guess it was end of 2019, beginning of 2020 is when I first started off as a personal trainer. I was trying to do a loading phase, and I was like, I can't keep forcing this anymore. So don't beat yourself up if you can't, right? Just go the full 30 days. And honestly, I like that better anyways, because you should be taking it every day. So, and don't be shy about going over the 5 grams a day either when you hit the maintenance phase, right? There's a lot of research to show that the more creatine you have in your system, the better, right? Once we get past anywhere from 7 to 16 grams, there's new research coming out of the neurocognitive benefits of creatine, right? On how it helps your myelin sheath in your brain. So Alex, if you see this, don't forget that. So yeah, creatine, amazing supplement. I highly recommend it for any athlete, any bodybuilder, whether you're natural or you're enhanced. Are you gonna see the results that you would with anything else that is an enhanced PED? No. But you'll definitely see, if you take it right, anywhere from a 1 to 5% increase in performance. And if you're competitive like me, that's huge. That is huge. I would trade a lot to get up to 3 to 5% more performance in a lot of different areas of my athletics and my strength goals and bodybuilding goals at this point in my life. So that's big. All right, I want to go over one more thing regarding the creatine and water in particular. And it's in light of that bloating comment I had made earlier. So when you're taking creatine, knowing that it's going to be pulling more water into the muscle tissues, by default, you have to hydrate up more than you normally would, right? So you should already be trying to strive for a hydrated state of anywhere from a gallon to a gallon and a half a day for guys. For females, 3/4 of a gallon to a gallon. That being said, if you're not getting enough water, the creatine's not going to work, right? That's just how that works. And if you are getting enough water, but you're abnormally high in sodium, you're going to get this puffy look. And that's what a lot of people misinterpret as like, oh, the creatine caused me to bloat. No, it's the Chinese food that you had the night before and you're still taking creatine every day, right? So the sodium's going to pull a lot of water in, but you're already taking a substance that's pulling more water in. And now it's in this battle of, is the water going to sit in the skin or is it going to sit in the muscle cells, right? And more times than not, the sodium wins and it sits in the skin, right? As you go through a peak week, and you're manipulating your sodiums, those things become huge. So that's how I'm familiar with it. But I definitely know that a lot of people, especially people who tend to take creatine and they're not on any type of dieting and they're just kind of eating however they want, they're bulking, they'll be the first ones to say, oh, I don't take creatine anymore. This thing caused me to bloat. No, it didn't. You caused yourself to start bloating because you weren't keeping an eye on your sodium while you were taking a product that is intentionally pulling in more water into your body, whether it's the muscle cells, the skin, doesn't matter, right? It's pulling more water into the body. Therefore, it has to go somewhere, right? It could be carried in the skin or it could be carried in the muscle tissue. So that's everything you need to know regarding creatine, hydration, water, and bloating and sodium. So there you go.